time now for Coming In Hot with Brent Wallace and former Ottawa Senator Jason York.
Hey everybody, Brent Wallace alongside Graham Nichols as Jason York is on assignment. He's just flying home today. Welcome to the show, Graham. Nice to see you back from Buffalo. I hope all is well. This show, by the way, quickly brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Speaking of never ordinary, Graham, nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. How are you?
Fantastic this morning. We got lots to give away on the show. We got to talk about your trip to Buffalo. Carter Hutton's going to join us. And it's game day.
It's
game
day,
71.
Yeah. Thank God. Thank God. Move on from that Buffalo game. That was horrendous. That was probably the worst game I've been to. Like, I had the opportunity to be down, ask guys questions after the game and the scrums and stuff. That was probably the most irked, angry group of players I've seen this season following a loss. Like, I don't know whether it's like Travis Green reamed them out after the game or they knew they just absolutely pissed away 2 points against one of the league's worst teams. But like, the anger and frustration following that loss was like totally palpable, and you could see how much, like, Dylan Cozens especially, like, you could tell how much he wanted that game, and like, he wore it pretty good in his availability. Like, he spoke well with the Buffalo media and stuff, but like, you could tell like that meant something to him, and I think it's got to be frustrating that they didn't get the job done.
Yeah, you can always tell when the coach says something post game by the way they respond in their scrums, and so I agree with you. It was an angry group. I'm trying to think back to, like, was it that 5-0 Vancouver game or somewhere in there? I don't remember them being this, as you said, pissed off. They were disappointed in the other games, not like this.
Like, so I remember that Vancouver game that they lost 4-3 in Ottawa, where it's just like that losing streak just continued and they continued that slide. Like, you could hear a pin drop in that room, but it wasn't like anger. Like, this was like, we let this team off the hook and we should be walking out of here with 2 points.
So let's see if that has an impact in today's game as they wrap up the dad strip in Detroit. The good news, and we'll get to our picks later, is 2-0-1 versus the Detroit Red Wings this season. So maybe
aren't they something like 14-2-2 in their last 18 or something? Like, it's some ridiculous stat.
Yes, I will get to that in a sec.
Sorry, I jumped again.
No, it's okay. I just didn't have it handy. I only had this season because I was like, we'll talk about their power play for Detroit is on fire, which is weird. Their power play is second. The penalty kill's 32nd for Detroit. It's rare you see that.
Yeah, just other ends of the spectrum. I mean, like, they do have some like very highly skilled offensive players, but like, that's it. Like, looking at the roster up front, like, that's a relatively undersized team, right? Like, they're not. It's almost like those Ottawa teams like yesteryear, where it's just like tons of skill up front, but like not a ton of jam, not a ton of guys who can win a ton of battles. So, I'm not really too surprised by those metrics. But Detroit's 3-7-0 in the last 10. So like, there's an opportunity for Ottawa to take advantage of a team that's not playing particularly well right now.
Yeah, like we're worried about Detroit, whatever, 13 games ago, right? And they've kind of, I don't know if it's a cliff, but they've certainly fallen off. As you said, only 3 wins in the last 13 games. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe it's not. Maybe we just expected it, but
Ottawa,
the coaching changed everything for them.
Yeah, that's true too. They're playing a lot harder for them. I'm kind of intrigued. Like, this is a great bounce back opportunity for the Senators. I mean, like, if you can catch Detroit, they're coming and playing pissed off. Hopefully, Linus Ullmark, I would imagine after last game is going to get the start and be back in goal. They need a strong bounce back game. Like, Ottawa's not playing particularly well. Like, I know we talked about that last time I was on the show on I think it was Tuesday morning. But yeah, like, their efforts are like, I know, like, Yorkie makes a good point saying like, it's really hard to play a full 60 minutes. Like, the other team's trying to, and like, they're all professional players playing at the game's highest level. But like, Ottawa has not looked sharp for a full 60 minutes in a very long time. And I think they've lost 3 of their last 4 games.
Yeah, sorry, distracted as John Tortorella has announced he is stepping down as head coach of the Philadelphia Flyers.
John Tortorella quitter is something I never would have imagined hearing.
So he may have also fallen on the sword, right, of being told, hey, you can step down or you're about to, like, so I don't understand how all of it's going on in the background.
But like, why not ride out the season? Like,
well, so that's what I'm wondering. Did he get fired?
Yeah, maybe. Why he had those comments the other night, right, where he was talking about like a rebuild is not necessarily, It's not the kind of team that I want to coach. But it's like you also took that job knowing full well this is where that franchise was in its development. So
Yeah, there's always a bit of truth, but usually it's 95% kind of hidden. So whatever it is, the Philadelphia Flyers are going to have a new head coach. I'm curious to what happens next with Torts. Like, he hasn't had a lot of success since Tampa for the most part. I'm trying to remember here. Vancouver, not really, right?
You'd probably be a good fit in Buffalo for a team that needs a kick in the ass and like just like some tightening up and stuff. But
we'll ask Carter Hutton that. That's a great, because I don't know if he is too honest for players today.
Mm-hmm.
Players don't like to be necessarily told the harsh truth.
Yeah, that's true too.
All right, let's move on. This show brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers, proudly Canadian owned and operated since 1972 with more than 85 locations across the country through Charm and their sister brands. Check out custom ring building delivered in less than 4 weeks with a Charm Masterpiece program and an unbeatable pricing policy. Apply for the Charm Diamond Flexity card today and get approved for no interest financing on your purchase in minutes. For more information, go to charmdiamondcenters.com. Chosen forever, Charm Diamond Centers. I didn't feel like singing. Also by Gabriel Pizza, the official pizza of the Ottawa Senators. And of course, coming in hot. Download the Gabriel Pizza app today and then start to earn points with every purchase on the app and get exclusive deals with Gabriel Pizza perks. Order on the app, or you can also still order online at gabrielpizza.com. Don't forget, though, in the Sens score for tomorrow is a lovely 40% off 9-inch pizza of your choosing. Just use the Gabriel Pizza app when ordering. Oh, and one more, Club EG. Golf season's quickly coming. I just want to give away a golf pass here while we're talking. As this show is brought to you by Club EG as well. Your best bet for amazing golf this season in and around Ottawa. One membership with Club EG gets you access to 60 amazing courses at member-only rates, all within a 2-hour drive of Ottawa. Check out the courses online. We're going to give away some of them throughout. We're running out of passes, though. Today, we're going to give one away later in the show. Plenty of different packages to suit you. Right now, they have Easter specials. Give them a look online and see if which package is right for you, or give them a shout. Just contact them, clubeg.golf. And now, I just want you to email the show at cihsends@gmail.com. So let's tee it up with Club EG for a chance to win a foursome at the Hammond Golf and Country Club in beautiful Hammond, Ontario. God, that would be nice right now when I think of the weather that's coming this weekend. cihsends@gmail.com. I'll give away that at the end of the show or later in the show. All right, back to the game. Back to your trip to Buffalo.
Yes,
so
sir.
One of the fun things is when you go on the road
Mm-hmm.
and you're in the visitors locker room, there's not a lot of media around. So when the media or when the players see the local media, they're always much more accessible and a lot more open to chatting. So what was your trip like this little time to Buffalo?
So that was my first time to Buffalo, and obviously you hear the reputation of the city going in, and people slag it fairly regularly. So like my expectations were very low going in, but the Harborfront's nice. It's just there's no one there. Like there is literally no one walking around at night. And I know like we were talking to Uber drivers, like Julian and I, throughout the course of the week. Like we were talking to Uber drivers, and they said like, like Mondays are typically quiet because that's the night that they give like restaurant bar staff the night off just to recover for the week. And there's just literally there was no one downtown in the restaurant bar scene. And it was a good first night out. Like went out for dinner with Mendez and the comm staff, and then we bumped into Josh Horst, like I told you, on Tuesday morning, and it was a good night out. You get some honesty, some good conversations with all those guys, and it was a hell of a lot of fun. And then you go in hoping that there's going to be a morning skate, and unfortunately it was an optional one. So like I traveled all that way, and I was like, fuck, there was no one available outside of just scrums. I guess like Julian got a one-on-one with Brady, which was cool. But I talked to Ian, like I'm just like, Ian knew, like he knew, like I drove all that way just to like, build some rapport and talk to some of the guys for some stories and stuff. But like Ian set me up before the game with a one-on-one with Steve Stais, which was really cool. I haven't really had a chance to talk to Steve at all this season. It seems like every time he's talking, I'm working a shift for Fire. So that was really, really nice. And I did that pregame, and that kind of that made the trip definitely worthwhile.
Okay, let's not gloss over a little chat with Steve Stais. I know you haven't released the article yet. Is there any tidbits that you'd like to share with us, Graham?
Ooh, it was more So the context of what the questions that I was asking were more related to like targeting Dylan Cozens and like targeting a fit. And it's not necessarily slagging Josh Norris. But like they give away a valuable player who's like, I think he had 19 or 20 goals when they traded him. So like they moved out a lot of value to bring in Dylan Cozens, but it was more like, it was kind of like looking at all the players that Steve's acquired throughout the course from the offseason to now, and how most of them, maybe with the exception of Fabian Zetterlund, who hasn't produced a point yet, are playing at a relatively high level right now. Like whether it's David Perron, Cozens, Amadio, Nick Jensen, like everyone's contributing and playing at a relatively high level. So we talked about the process and targeting certain players. So that was basically the context of the article. And yeah, that's it. So hopefully people will give it a chance to check it out when it comes out.
Did you ask him about like David Perron, and is he pleasantly surprised after everything that Perron has gone through and trading for him of how well he's playing?
No, I didn't ask specifically about Perron. It was more Cozens related, but yeah, now you've got me kicking myself for not asking about David Perron. But I will say, like, David Perron, perhaps one of the most engaging players within that room. And when he talked to us after the game, like head just on straight, didn't acknowledge us on the way out and everything. Like he just, as soon as he was done answering questions, there were only a few questions, but as soon as he finished answering, he was just out.
That's the basic equivalent of biting your tongue. Like he did not want to speak. He didn't want to be there. He only came out because he understood the process. But yeah, I totally get where you're coming from. Not a happy camper.
No, but that's like, you know, as a group, like they're fuming. And like Brady even came out, like the first words out of his mouth during that post-game scrum were like, it's shitty. It's a shitty feeling. Like they know, like they absolutely 100% know. And it's to let that team off the hook. It's just, it's frustrating. They let that game get away from them. And I will say, like, the one player who I'm excited for is like Jacob Bernard Docker. Like I had a chance to talk to him before the game after Buffalo skate, and like he was excited. He was chomping at the bit to play, and it's like for him to come in and then score a pretty significant goal within the context of that game it's cool. He's a really great kid, and to see him contribute like that, like he, even after the game, he was like ear to ear grin. So he was happy, and it was cool. It was a cool moment for a guy who didn't really get much of an opportunity down the stretch. Yeah.
This is why people are like, throughout my career, like, oh, who do you cheer for? Who's your favorite team? Like, I don't really have one necessarily. Like, I will always cheer for certain players throughout the league. Like, I'll always cheer for Josh Norris. JBD is another one. He was always really good to me. I think he's just a really good guy. And so I hope he has a ton of success wherever he plays.
Yeah. And like within the context of the game, you're talking about him being a potential option on the Senators' third pairing at one point in time. And then he scores a big significant goal. Meanwhile, Ottawa's third pairing that night was an absolute tire fire. And like, I don't want to belabor the point about like Travis Hamonic and like, and just his performances, but it's like,
sounds like you are.
But I like eventually I push, like, what do you do at some point? Like the struggles are just there. And it's like,
okay, but here's, so Graham, we had this discussion yesterday. The argument is that Nick Matenpalo is not a significant upgrade. And some would argue, if at all, like pretty on par. There's certain things each guy does better than the other or whatever. So that's the argument. There isn't a replacement necessarily. And I agree with Yorkie, and I had this conversation that Matenpalo is kind of either plateaued or dipped a little in his play. So I can see the Hamonic in the lineup. Now, I don't know what tonight will be. It wouldn't shock me if Matenpalo played, right, to be honest. But like the problem is there's no upgrade.
Yeah, like I didn't think it was the time or place to ask Steve that question. I think that's probably something I'll leave till the end of the season when he does, whenever the Senators wrap up the season, whether it's after the postseason, the regular season, whatever. But like, I think like I would love to ask Steve about his frustrations, or if there are any frustrations with the rigidity of like Travis Hamonic's no move clause, because I think like that
he won't answer it.
You don't think so? If I asked him at the end of the season if he thought about buying Travis Hamonic out, he wouldn't answer that question.
I think to protect the player, because he's been a very good pro, he'll deflect that.
But he's not coming back next year, so
doesn't matter. He'll still protect it. I think he still protects the player. Just
interesting.
Like off for camera, but yeah, sure. Like I meant to look, and I don't know what the answer is. Maybe somebody knows off the top of their head, but how many are complete no move contracts that aren't superstar players in the league?
Very few.
I don't. What's quite a few? I'm not sure.
No, very few. I'd say very few.
Yeah, like full no move, not like the 10 team.
I can see it for like guys who are historically like significant, not necessarily like great players. Like Chris Neil. Did Chris Neil have like a no move towards the end of his tenure with Ottawa? Like I'm thinking like legacy franchise, like single soul franchise players. Like that's kind of like the ilk I'm thinking of. But like you're right. Like I think it's very uncharacteristic for a player like Hamonic to have one of those contracts.
Right.
But
anyway, Uncle Shikadance, although I always concerned that that's not pronounced right, says the official Flyers release says he was relieved of his duties, while Elliot Friedman and others are reporting that he stepped down. So I'm gonna have to check the release if I have, but there's no way he's stepping down with 10 games to go or 9, whatever it is. Like I think it's just the way it's worded. I think he's fired. I agree. So anyway, let's move on quickly. Let's just give away the jersey now and then bring Carter Hutton on. So we had 5 questions for you to give away before we gave away the signed Tim Stützle jersey. They were, what team did Tim score his first goal against? Toronto Maple Leafs. How fast did Tim drive on the Autobahn? 330 kilometers an hour. Although I feel like we should check the speedometer on that. But anyway, how many 4-point games does Tim have? 7. What were Tim's roommates when he lived in Ottawa? Brady and Josh. And then this one became tricky. Which 2 teams has Tim not scored against? Now, people argued with me. They told me that it was sneaky and that I was wrong. It's Utah and Arizona. Again, the league refers to Utah and Arizona as 2 separate franchises. The records are separate. Utah only bought they only bought the franchise from Arizona, but it's a separate franchise. So it is Utah and Arizona, despite the people telling me it was Ottawa. And I will tell you, ChatGPT was not your friend yesterday because I kept getting a bunch of answers about Seattle and Columbus, and I'm like, how are they getting these? So I ChatGPT'd it, and I found out that ChatGPT was giving you the wrong answer. So
don't trust AI. There you go.
Do not trust AI. Here now is the winner of the Tim Stützle signed jersey. Drumroll, Joseph Thu. We will be in contact with you shortly, and I will get that jersey sent out to you. All right.
Congrats,
I appreciate
Joseph.
it. That's pretty good. We'll do another one soon. All right. Without further ado, Carter Hutton, one of the former NHL goaltender, now NHL analyst, who has all the answers whenever I need them. Good morning.
I don't have a jersey though. I didn't even know about this draw. I'm finding about this now. I feel like I was done wrong here, Brent.
Because you are on the show, you are not allowed to participate.
Too close to it. Too close. That was like when I used to buy 50. I used to buy a lot of 50-50 tickets when I played, and they always said we couldn't win. But I'm like, we are going to win this. I'm going to get someone to claim it, and we are finding a way to win this 50-50. I came within about 50 to 100 numbers in Vancouver one time for like 50 grand or something. That would have been real nice. Fans would have loved me even more.
So we're going to go off topic here for a sec. Do players always buy in Edmonton? And like Edmonton, Calgary have those. It's Edmonton for sure. The massive 50-50s.
Most guys do. You know what I used to do is I just take my per diem money, and usually there's a guy that works the room, right? This is money the old lady didn't see, right? He hide it away, and I would buy it for all the trainers, or we'd all divvy up. Everyone throw $5 in, and I would throw in like $100, and we'd buy it, and then I'd split with the trainers. But I never split nothing because we never won anything. But it was good to be in it. I would laugh because I'd be sitting on the bench. Everyone thinks it's so serious, right? We're obviously these pro athletes that have to be intense. I'd be sitting on the bench, and I'd have in my blocker stuff the 50-50 numbers, and then the trainer would have the dry erase board out, and he'd be writing down the numbers, and then we'd be trying to match it while the game's going on.
That's because I mean now you can go online and check them after, but back then if you weren't in the building, you had no idea.
Had to do it live. So that was always the running joke. I feel like I had played so long now, the like room attendants in visiting rooms, they would come to me right away, be like, Hutz, you want tickets tonight? That, or do you want a hot dog? Because they knew I'd get a little hungry around the second period.
How many hot dogs do you think you would have eaten or consumed in a game? And I'll think Montreal, because Montreal is famous for their hot dogs.
Yeah, Montreal. I think early in my career, I gained the freshman 15. I would say, right? I was, you're just around too much food, and you're sitting there and you're eating. And then I learned, I was like, you start getting poked and prodded and grabbed for body fat. You're a little more careful to see what you eat. But I've eaten a lot, and I always used to joke. Ray Emery used to tell me this. Rest his soul, a former Sen as well.
Yeah.
It's the most hungry position in sports is backup goalie. Because I remember when I was with the Hawks with him, he'd always wheel in with like a foot-long sub. He'd have a sub from Subway being like, I'm not playing tonight. I got to make sure I'm fed.
Last question, we'll move on, is what's it like to be – Carolina's one, Montreal is famous for sitting by yourself the whole game. In fact, Montreal, you sit closer to the fans, I think, than anywhere.
Yeah, it's Montreal was cool, in the sense of the hockey atmosphere. If the game was going a certain way, people would be right on you. But yeah. I thought the interaction was always unique, right? I'm a very easygoing guy. I don't know if that comes off during these interviews, but you get, kids would come down. I'd like show them my glove or let them try my helmet on, get a picture. Wow. And I thought that was unique, right? Because in the sense of me being ready to go, I was ready to go, right? I didn't need time.
Yeah.
This is goaltending. This is what I do every single day. If I had to go in, I was ready to go. The one that I didn't like was when you'd be in the dressing room by yourself. Like San Jose, at times they do that. Chicago, certain teams would put you in the room. You feel like you're so detached from the rink, right? You don't feel the energy of the game. You're just not near the crowd. So at times I found that difficult where, you'd have to go in. But I also have a collection of pretty funny photos from the room where it'd be me sitting beside a giant bag of popcorn or me having a slice of pizza, sending a selfie to my friends and stuff. So looking back now, I got a good collection of memories.
It's pretty good. I didn't know about the San Jose one. That's interesting.
Yeah, they put you right in the room.
Yeah, you're like the e-bug. So, okay, quickly, Dylan Cozens. You played with him, I think, his rookie year, maybe two, but you can correct me. What do you know about him, and what is Ottawa getting in Dylan Cozens?
I think a complete player. Honestly, a guy that can play on both sides of the puck, that works hard, wears it on his sleeves. He can get in the mix. He can fight. He is – I think you get to a point when he's playing in Buffalo for so long and you're not part of important games. And I talk about this a lot, I guess maybe being on the other side of it. And I didn't realize how important those games were early in my career, being in the mix, playing in a hunt, trying to get a playoff spot where – as I went on in my career, those are things that I drew upon, right? I had experience now of, playing a hockey night in Canada against a team where we needed the 2 points. They needed it. It was a big game. There's lots of pressure. And I think for Dylan Cozens, I think what kind of deteriorated in Buffalo was the fact that he wasn't involved in those games, right? And we look at all these guys in Buffalo that have gone on to be successful where they've moved on to. I think that is a big point for him. And I think he is a complete guy that can play on both sides of the puck. And he has that like fire in him too, which I love, right? He's going to get down in the mud. And if it's one of those games where, you have the ultimate leader in Ottawa, in my opinion. Brady Tkachuk is a guy that in a new age of skill where we really love skill and skating, and it's like, what else can you do for me? And Brady is one of those players that I think is the top of the board, right? He can do it all. And I think Dylan Cozens is a guy, as him as his wingman, he is like maybe a poor man's Brady Tkachuk in that opinion, right? I think Brady's the extreme of what he can do, but Dylan's going to fit in very well in that sense of you look down the lineup and now you got guys that are pretty hard-nosed that can play against you down the lineup for the Sens with a really good goalie. This team becomes much more dangerous in my opinion.
Carter, I was at the game on Tuesday and like looking at Dylan like after the game in the media scrum, you could tell how much he wanted that game. You could tell how much that win meant to him. In Buffalo, he was expected to be one of those guys based off his draft position, his skill set, everything else. He was expected to be one of those guys that carried him. How much more will he probably benefit in Ottawa being a second line center who can play behind like the Brady Tkachuks, the Tim Stützles, and like he's more insulated in terms of like for a guy who wants to take everything on, he's a little bit more insulated in his role right now.
Yeah, I think that is important too. And we see it all the time in the NHL, right? Like how important slotting is, right? We see it, a guy, they add one addition, it might not be the right thing, but then maybe it affects other players down the lineup where they can play in a better role and opportunities come in weird ways, right? I think in Buffalo, we were pulling at straws, right? We were just trying to find whatever worked. And even the fact that, he had a good season, he got the big contract. I think he is a prideful guy too. Like, I don't want to say he signed this ticket and shut it down because we do see that too. We've seen that over the years, right? The old Russian effect, right? It's a contract year and they're going to try again. But for Dylan Cozens, I think he is an all-around player and he can do that. But it is going to be important for him. And yes, obviously he wants to win against Buffalo, losing 3-2. And that's a tough one to go to the Sabres and lose that game when you want to send a statement to them. But with that being said, what's more important for this Ottawa team and what's more important for Dylan Cozens is winning down the stretch here and finding a way to get in the playoffs, right? You look at the matchups they have coming, obviously, with Detroit and Columbus 3 times down the stretch. These are going to be games that are man-maker games, right? And I think with the leadership of the Chuck and everything that's gone on with this team, Dylan Cozens is going to fit in very well in the role that he is right now.
I want to ask you about John Tortorella. We'll come back to the Sens in a sec. Brad Shaw is going to take over as head coach in Philadelphia right now, former Ottawa 67. And now he's back behind the bench as a head coach since a long time ago when he was the Islanders head coach. Carter, are you shocked that John Tortorella, as the press release says, was relieved of his duties? And then Torts goes on to say, I have stepped down. I interesting the way they've worded this. However, I will take that either way. John Tortorella is out. You shocked by this at all?
A little, maybe from his comments the other night, right? It felt weird after that Leafs game, like just that he doesn't know how to coach a team that is struggling like this. And I love the fact it's like, well, you're fired, but I quit. I already quit. You can't fire me. So yes. I just think with Torts, it's one of those things that's unique. And I also think that he wears out his stay, right? I've played for coaches that are high energy. Peter Laviolette, very similar, right? It's 82 games. Professional athletes, everybody's making a ton of money. They know they have power. They know they just can't get walked over. And especially with this new day and age of player where it's hard to go to the well every single night. It's hard to be hard on guys. It's hard to have a crazy pump up speech. It's you need players to coach themselves. And I think John Cooper does a great point of that, always bringing up that, like, you know, during those cup runs, he was just opening the door. He'd say the lines and the team started to police itself, where I found things that had gone south with the Flyers, it just doesn't seem like they were on the same page. Even like the Mishkov coming in and just doesn't have that relationship anymore. And I found when I was in Arizona with Andre Tournier, who's in Utah now, like a new age coach means a lot because you can't just hit the same players with the same stuff all the time. Guys are different, right? You have to handle them different. And what I noticed when we were in Arizona my last year was we actually did personality tests, which was very unique, right? So we went and we worked with a psychiatrist, sports psychiatrist, figured it all out, and they categorized us into 4 categories, whatever we were. And then what Andre would use is we would actually have team meetings where I don't know if the players necessarily use it, but I think it's a good tool to have as a coach where, like, if I'm a guy that is super competitive and I respond better to, like, hey, Hutz, you sucked last night. Like, you need to be better. You need to be better. Help our team, right? Where that's the day and age I grew up in. That lit a fire under me, right? Where some guys that are making $6 million, they don't want to hear that. Maybe they shut it down. And I think to just paint every player with the same brush gets exhausting over 82 games, right? You need to find a way to do it. And I think for Torres, he's been a great coach. He's done a lot, but I think that has wear and tear on players.
You brought up Andre Tournier, former Ottawa Senator, assistant coach and 67's head coach. I felt that there was a lot. The rumor was he took the Arizona job because they just knew they were going to be bad, and he walked into almost a no-win situation. Are you surprised at how well, at least I think, of how well he's been able to kind of right that ship a little and turn things around?
Yeah, like I think it's a mix, right? I think Vejmelka is a goalie that kind of fell in his lap. You know, a guy that was, you know, he was signed over here. He didn't sign with the Preds. He bet on himself. He went back to Czech League, played, matured, came over, and in camp he was very good. On top of all the players they have, right? I think they have a good stockpile of players. I think Armstrong has done a great job there of getting picks and drafting players. And now they're at the point where you look at the Gunthers and the Coolies along with, you know, Keller and Schmaltz and Kroos, and obviously getting that Sergachev deal over there. Now you have some bodies to work with. And I think with that being said, letting the room police itself a bit in a sense that I've noticed from Tournier, I think he does a really good job of that. And I also think there is that benefit of being like coming from junior, right? He's a Hockey Canada guy. He's, you know, that the day and age of player has changed, right? I feel like I went through that in my career. I kind of came in the old school where it was like, this is what we do. We drink beers, we play hockey. And like, you know, that is like the, you know, I guess maybe the culture of it where it's changed, right? It's gone full the other way where guys are more tend to like not go out for dinners and play video games and like be more antisocial. So I think like being able to break through to your players and let the room work itself is a really, really good skill to have. And I think Tournier has that.
Carter, I want to ask about Ottawa's goaltending. They started Anton Forsberg on Tuesday night. Like, Ottawa has not clinched a playoff spot. You have 2 points up for grabs against arguably one of the worst teams on paper, or not on paper, in the standings anyways, in Buffalo. Is that a game that you look at? I know Forsberg has to play games down the stretch, but are the 2 points like putting the best lineup on the ice, should that have been paramount for Ottawa in that game?
I think so. I think especially looking at the last game against the Devils was on the 22nd. You didn't play till the 25th. You know, that's enough time to like give Linus rest to be ready to go to peak. Because if you look moving forward, you're probably going to have to play Forsberg again here soon, right? Because you have Columbus and Pittsburgh on a back-to-back. So I know you want to get him in there and you want him to have reps, but I truly believe at this point in the year, getting in the playoffs is kind of your season, right? Like you have to make sure you get in, and then from there you can make some noise. So unless there's something going on behind the scenes where they're tentative because they don't want to ride Linus too much because of the, you know, the issue of injury earlier in the season would be my only takeaway. But the way those games were slotted with 3 days in between, I necessarily don't love the decision for sure, because you're going to have to see Forsberg here again soon. And not that he's not capable of winning, but there is a big difference of like icing your best team. And something I dealt with in my career when I played with Rene, he would always start the front and the back-to-back. Because Peter Laviolette had a reason. His reason was we're going to ice the best team when we're fresh. And we'd lose, and I would start the next night, and then we'd lose that game. He'd be like, well, Rene's going again. Because it'd just be like, well, he's way better than you even when he's tired. So it's one of those things where Linus is the best goalie all in all.
As Ottawa gets closer and closer to the playoff, assuming, like, I think last time I checked, there were like 93% chance of reaching the postseason following their win against Jersey. How would you, if you're the head coach or the goaltending coach, like how would you address Ottawa's goaltending down the stretch? Like how would you roll it out? Like you play with Allmark. Like what's the best way to get him sharp over the stretch run? I think they have like 13 games left.
I think communication. I think that's going to be huge, right? He's a veteran guy now. He knows his body. He knows what he needs, right? So I think peaking at the right time where at the end of the day, the matchup you get, it is what it is, right? I think you just want to make sure the team is playing in the right direction. But I also feel like if you start to gain some ground, you have some space. I honestly truly don't think you want to see him on a back-to-back. I think that would be crazy at this point in the year. And then again, that being said, if you do build up a little bit more of a cushion, maybe you see Forsberg a bit more to making sure that Linus is ready to go. Because in my opinion, this is also a transition season for Linus too, right? He went from being in Ottawa where he was protected, where it was him and Swayman, there was always that back-to-back feel. It's a different animal. He's carried the mail at times, but it's a different animal playing all the time down the stretch. And what I always notice this time of year is there's no catch-up, right? There's really no chance to just re-energize yourself and be ready to go because the games come at you so furiously.
Here's my theory, though, on why they did Buffalo with Forsberg, and it's all because of Detroit's power play being second best in the league. I think they said, well, if we're going to have to flip one of these two, then Ullmark gets Detroit based on the Detroit Red Wing power play. That's the only thing I could think of. That's my theory.
Because they're so dangerous. Yeah, it makes sense, I guess, because that's when you're gonna see the most high quality chances. Thinking he could steal one in Buffalo is important. I guess my take, Brent, is just the fact that they played the Devils on the 22nd, right? And you're moving to the 25th to make sure you can try to bank points because nothing in this league is for certain. That's the way it usually goes.
I would have felt the same way. I was like, you start your goalie till you clinch a playoff spot, but clearly we're all wrong. So that's what I was trying to come up with how they divvied up the starts. Anyway, go ahead, Gray.
Carter, got a question for you. Ottawa's like getting a lot of getting slagged online a little bit for their passive diamond formation penalty.
Wait a second, you slagged them. Don't say all time.
All right, no, but there is like a lot of people bring it up, and it looks good when they're aggressive. Everybody's working in concert like Pistons, and covering for each other. But like at times it gets a little too passive. Maybe as a goaltender, you could provide some perspective. Like, is it tough to play behind a passive penalty kill like that? And like, how much pressure does that put on you to worry about like cross-ice pass, like seam passes and whatnot?
Well, I don't think it puts pressure on me as long as there's like predictability in what we're giving up, right? And I think that is the main thing with goaltending and the penalty kill, especially when you're short, is the communication of like, if it does go to a low bumper guy, like he's my guy. Okay, if he walks out, I have him. He's not going to cross half crease. Like those are my guys. Where I think it gets. In Buffalo, we were super aggressive, right? And I felt that when that first guy would miss or get beat by a pass, it would ensue chaos. And then I felt from there it was way harder to deal with. When I played in St. Louis, where we had bigger, more mature defensemen, the predictability came so important. Where if it was a bump play up top, say they're running an umbrella, it's going to go for a one-timer where a guy goes out to front that shot. As long as he knows that if it's beating me on one side, so the play was always giving me the short side, right? So if the play was on his left, on my glove side, say, and if it was going to beat the D-man, it was going wide of the net. If not, it was on net. And I think that's where the maturity comes into making predictable plays. Because as a goalie, like you can talk to Linus about this, anyone, if you kind of know where your threats are, it's going to be the best, right? And again, you can't always predict that. Sometimes with a passive kill, it creates a little bit more predictability because guys aren't running out of position, especially if they get beat with like high end skill. But with that being said, I think it's about communication and it's about the breakdowns from like, where do we go from there? Because majority of power plays, it's not the initial setup that beats you. It's off the rebound where a guy gets lost, the guy gets turned over the wrong way. And then from there, chaos creates. And next thing you know, it ends up getting seamed across in the back of your net.
Graham still wants them to change it.
No, I think it's like, I guess I would have to watch it more to be total.
Yeah.
Like, in my opinion, I think if your D-men are a little bit like more predictable, it makes life so much easier for a goalie because of that.
Yeah,
but it's like, what quality chances are you giving up? You're going to give up chances on a power play, in my opinion, no matter what. That's just the way it works. It's like, what are we giving up though? And so what I loved is when I knew, like, if a play came down the low goal line, the bumper guy, where normally he's a threat in the slot to bump it out. Okay, the slot's taken away. I have that low guy. Like, if he jams that puck in me and I have an RVH or beats me up high, that's like my fault. And what Ken Hitchcock used to always say in meetings, like, if this one goes in, we're going to get new goalies. And that's like kind of like the point, right? Is like, at some point you have to give up something and your goalies have to make saves.
Yeah, I guess my issue with Ottawa is penalty kill right now. It just seems like it's putting a lot of pressure on the two defensemen when they're out on the flanks. It seems like they get caught high a lot. Like, they're consistently having to make like those split-second decisions where it's like, oh, do I collapse too low? Do I come out high to challenge the shooter? What do I do? And it seems like they're kind of caught in like that weird
no man's
almost like no man's land purgatory, where it's just like they throw it down low and then it becomes a 2-on-1 very easily. And that's I think that's where Ottawa's getting in trouble a little bit.
Maybe if there's like more pressure from the top, right? I think if the top guy in that diamond formation is more aggressive to push guys down the wall, then you're not giving up the center of the ice, because the center of the ice is where it gets real dangerous, right? And you look at a goalie like Linus Ullmark, you'll watch him work around he like never really leaves the crease, right? He's just like a big boxy goalie. It's really hard to beat him square. So I think if you can keep, pucks on one half of the ice, it's going to be really beneficial, especially when you have a goalie like Linus.
Quickly before I let you go, you brought up Ken Hitchcock. What was it like to play for him? He's known to have a quick tongue, if you will.
He was good. He was demanding, very unique. He had that relationship with the players, I guess maybe because we had such a mature team in St. Louis that, guys would give him a hard time and it would be a joke. But he was honestly super intelligent. He helped me a lot, but he was very, very demanding. And there was no joke. If he saw something he didn't like, there was no holding back.
Now, we always laughed because when you watch him on practice, he just basically moved around the center ice dot.
Yeah. Well, so we used a joke. So when he'd get mad at practice, he'd blow the whistle, and wherever he was, he'd want you to meet. And then intentionally, we would just all park and take a knee on the other side of the ice. Like, so if he was over by the bench, we'd go park a knee over there to make him like go all the way across the ice. So the guys I just fell in line at that point, because a lot of those guys had played for him for a long time, and they used to call him Muskrat. So, so in between periods, I came in, I was replacing Brian Elliott, and former Sen as well, right? Brian played there. Yeah. And they'd be like, Hutz, and where my seat was, there was like the change room, and he would come from the coach's room. And they'd be like, Hutz, when he's walking, you have to yell Muskrat walking. Like, he's coming to the room for our in between. I'm like, I'm not yelling Muskrat walking, man. I've been here for 5 minutes. They're like, no, you have to do it. So it got to the point where, this would go on. And then if we're having a good night and the boys are feeling good, they would strategically put sticks across the dressing room in the other change room, so he couldn't get around them. He'd have to walk and like try to kick them over to get through. So there's a lot of funny stuff that went on with Hitchcock, but he was a good coach, and a lot of fun memories of Hitch.
He's very good to me. I've always enjoyed him. So I do love Hitch. I just know he's a different animal, and obviously when coaching hockey games. Carter, appreciate your time as always. Thank you for joining the show. Next time, I'll let you know when there's a contest.
Yeah, it'd be nice. I'll use a fake name. That's easy. I can get in there.
There you go. Appreciate it, buddy. Take care, my friend.
Thanks, Carter. See you, Ram.
There goes Carter Hutton, NHL analyst. I still think he is arguably one of the best there is, up and coming for sure.
Oozing charisma.
He's so good.
Yeah. Anyway, very, very good. Personal.
All right, we gotta move on, get some stuff away from the show, or give us some stuff away in the show. All right. I got some ad reads to take care of. I'm just going to take care of them today, Graham. I know you're busy. You've traveled. You're always doing stuff. You got tea parties with the daughter planned. So think you know hockey. Play Sobeys, my NHL picks weekly starting today. Go pick 5 games for the next week. And then download the Sobeys app, pick the winners of 5 games, and compete for your chance to win prizes such as the Sobeys grocery offers, or up to 150,000 Scene Plus points, or the grand prize trip of 4 to this year's Stanley Cup Finals. I'm still upset that I went 4 for 5 because the Sens lost in Buffalo. Also, BEI, our good friends at Bonisher Excavating Inc. I keep saying the spring is just around the corner, but it doesn't appear so this coming weekend. So maybe just give it some thought about redoing your driveway or some landscaping this weekend, and check them out. Bonisher Excavating has all the help you need when competitive pricing on your landscape needs, aggregate, stone, topsoil sales. Give them a call, 613-432-1120, or go to bonisherexcavating.com. BEI, helping to shape the Ottawa Valley. And of course, by our show presenting sponsor, Bet365. Of course, now I've misplaced the read. Breaking news coming in from Bet365. You download the app today at Bet365, where it's never ordinary. All kinds of things to bet on, including today's Sens game we'll get to in a second. You'll see my parlay as we go ahead here. Bet365 is the app. All right, I'll get in trouble for that later. So here is the odds for today's game. And I still think that Tim Stützle has got to score at some point, but I didn't put him in today. Fabian Zetterlund to score a goal today. Today is the day Fabian Zetterlund will light the lamp.
I thought it was going to be Buffalo. Like, I thought for sure. And like the first line, like I asked Brady after the game, like when that line was on the ice the other night against Buffalo, they had shot them 12-3. Like, they created a lot. And I thought one of the things that they were doing really well was working the puck down low and then throwing it into the slot. And it just seemed like I don't know whether they just took like a split second to get rid of the shot, but like there was a lot of missed nets and missed opportunities from the slot, but like they were doing a good job of just getting it there.
He had that one chance where there was a little bit of a loose puck in front that I thought he was just going to push it in, and that was going to be it. But so Fabian Zetterlund to score a goal, Drake Batherson 3 shots on goal. I'm going big today, and Jake Sanderson a point. That's my parlay today.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. How nice was it to see Timmy start shooting the puck again? I think he was like games that he had like 4 games in a row without a shot, and then he rings one off the crossbar like first shift.
Yeah,
like,
so okay. I get that the crossbar doesn't count. Here's the scoring leaders from the last 8 games, which is since trade deadline. Tim has 7 shots on goal in 8 games.
Mm-hmm.
He's just got to so it's easy for us to sit here and go shoot the puck and yell from the stands like the crazy people, like get in the hole.
I told him when he was on the show, you got to rip it more, and he laughed.
I know.
Like, he knows.
I know, but I just he carries the puck so much. I would expect him to shoot more.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I will say, like, I wanted to bring this up. Like, I thought Michael Amadio was unbelievable against Buffalo. Like, I know he's playing 4th line role, but like he kind of looked to me. He looked a little bit like Mark Stone out there. There's like several times when a Buffalo player was trying to break the puck out of their own end, he would come from lift their stick, take the puck away for prolonged shifts in the offensive zone. And I just feel like it's nice having depth. Don't get me wrong. Like, having depth through 4 lines is exceptional, but like I feel like he's outperforming certain guys in the lineup. And like, I don't know. I love Claude Giroux as a player, but like they need more from Claude Giroux at this point in the season.
I don't disagree with you. So yeah, and he'll never play 4th line minutes. Like, you'd never flip Amadio and Giroux, and so I would like to see Michael Amadio get more minutes, but that's neither here nor there from us at this point. All right, so the matchup today is against the Detroit Red Wings, who, as I said, I think this is a special teams game. I think this all comes down to whether Ottawa can contain Detroit's power play and whether they can capitalize on a terrible penalty kill that ranks 32nd in the league. That's what I think today comes down to.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. And I think like having Ullmark in, like, I'm not saying there's a lot of pressure on him, but I mean, like, he should be well rested. They need a big game from him, and they need to score 5-on-5 is the biggest thing. Like, that's like against Buffalo, I think they only had like 2 5-on-5 goals in 3 games against Buffalo. And it's like a recurring theme where it's like they're generating chances, they're getting chances, but they're not burying them. And eventually you hope that that dam bursts at some point and they score a bunch more. But their power play I thought their power play against Buffalo looked very, very strong. Like, the first unit was unbelievable, and they're creating lots of chances, and hopefully that carries over into tonight's game against Detroit.
By the way, 2-0-1 versus the Detroit Red Wings. We all remember the game back here. Was that like January 9th?
The Monday.
They stole that. Well, they stole that game, if you will. The shots were 27 or 24 shots in the second period alone. It was January 7th. It was a wild game. No, that's not the game. Anyway, I'll get back to it. March 10th. Sorry. 27 shots in the second period alone. Outshot them 49-23, but Linus Ullmark, arguably one of the best performances we've ever seen him play.
Yeah, crowd was chanting his name, and then
he didn't hear it.
You didn't hear it? No, I believe. I totally believe that. Totally believe
that. Which is
that.
funny because we had Craig Anderson on the show yesterday, and he was like, "Man, like we asked him about hearing his name chanted, and he's like, it was really cool. Ottawa was really great at chanting my name and knowing when to do it and all that stuff." And here's Linus, I can't hear anything.
But then at the end of the game, when he gets called up for the first star, he's got the stick and he's screaming, "Let's fucking go!" Yeah, believe that for a second.
Anyway, I expect the same kind of from Linus Ullmark tonight. I would be shocked if this is not a team that comes out firing. Right?
Yeah. Based off what they said, the body language and everything else from Tuesday, they're going to come out playing pissed off. I wouldn't be surprised if this is like that New Jersey Devils effort that we saw where they played like exceptionally well for like 2 periods. I think like I hope you're going to get that kind of performance tonight. They have to be sharper, and as we head down the stretch and go into the final 10 games of the season, like there needs to be that kind of sharpness brought back to the game, because I think if they don't get to that, they continue to have like lulls and lapses where it's like the first 2 periods against Buffalo, great first 10 minutes of each period, and then just fades for whatever reason. And maybe you give credit to the opposition for it, but it feels like every time this team puts the foot on the pedal, they let up at times.
Jake, if I'm not mistaken, can you put the schedule up? Is Montreal not in Philadelphia tonight, or Montreal taking on Philadelphia? Am I right? Where is Montreal? Yeah, they're in Philadelphia. Interesting game. So Montreal obviously 4 points back for the first wild card spot. They're the only ones playing tonight. The Islanders, Rangers, if I'm not mistaken, are both off tonight. So Ottawa can put some space here and go up on the Islanders or Rangers, who are both tied, I think 74 points. But interesting for Montreal to go into what's going to be a little chaotic, if you will, of just everything that's buzzing around the Philadelphia Flyers this morning. Interesting game for Montreal tonight.
And they got waxed the other night against St. Louis, right?
St. Louis.
Like how big was that loss for Ottawa? Like, I mean, it could have been worse. Right?
Yes, but Graham, teams are going to lose. This is where we all overreact. Down the stretch, there's 11 games left. Teams are going to lose games. I think Ottawa is sitting comfortably at a 4-point cushion over Montreal in a fight. I don't think there's any chance either of the Islanders or Rangers push into a wild card spot at this point, or at least into the first wild card spot. That I know. 4 points.
Well, I don't think. Yeah,
I think it's
the Rangers.
massive.
They have 2 games in hand on the Rangers, 1 game in hand on the Islanders, and I think it's those teams are in a dogfight with the Canadians for the last spot. But like those, like Yorkie says, like those teams have pretty strong goaltenders, right? Whether it's Sorokin or Shesterkin, like those guys to steal games on their own, even when the team's not playing well. And I don't know if Montreal necessarily has that. I know they've received some good.
Sam Montembeault was,
yeah.
I don't know, but
they've gone on some leaders,
right? But, yeah. So I think the game just before the St. Louis game was that the Vancouver game.
Yep.
I think he was great, and I know Montreal is. I think they have 2 wins in the last 5, but points in 4 or 5 of 5 of 6, something to that effect. Like again, just have to get points. That I just think down the stretch you're going to see 500 hockey from this group, and it's just going to end up being the exact same. Maybe an Islander Ranger flip, but that's it for me. I don't think there's any change down the stretch.
Oh, and that would totally set up a Maple Leaf Senators playoff series potentially. Like,
could be interesting.
Could be interesting. I think I would hate to see it just from putting fans in the seats standpoint for Ottawa, but that would.
Let's worry about that when it happens.
Okay. But I don't think that's necessarily a bad matchup on paper. So
no, if you were to ask any fan, I think of the Sens right now, for the majority, I think they would take a Toronto-Ottawa matchup over a Florida-Ottawa matchup.
Yeah.
Florida just has that aura around them, right? That they're just going to punch you in the mouth and steal your money. Toronto, you're like, if we just hold them off the score sheet, not give them power plays, we got a chance to beat them.
Oh, for sure. And I think there'd be so much pressure on Toronto, right? It's the Battle of Ontario. You're playing the wild card team. eventually at some point that core in Toronto has to get the job done, or it's done. And especially in like Marner's last year with the organization, potentially, like there's gonna be so much pressure on Toronto to win and do it in a way that's sustainable. And I think for Ottawa, it's like they play that kind of defensive, physical style that can create some problems for a Toronto team that doesn't necessarily have that up front. So it would be a battle. It would be fun. It'd be a lot of fun.
It would be. I can only imagine the carnage if by chance, if this were just a playoff series. Let's not get crazy, people. If Ottawa were to win game 1 of that series, Toronto would be like on fire.
Yeah.
It would be hilarious.
The media would have a lot of fun with it for sure.
Yes. Chris Langdon, you are today's winner of a foursome at the Hammond Golf and Country Club. I will take care of that later and get you the certificate sent to you. And quickly, because I wasn't very good, this show is brought to you by Bet365. Breaking news coming in from Bet365, where every nail-biting overtime win is a barn burner, every face-off, hat-trick, power play, shot on goal, penalty shot, and every suspenseful minute in between is amazing. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary. Bet365, an official partner of the NHL. Download the Bet365 app today and use code NATION to get in on the game. Must be 19 or older. Please play responsibly. Ontario only. All right. We got I was gonna say if we have one more thing, but I think that's it. It's a busy week. Oh, if you'd like, Yorkie is obviously traveling. There is no Charlie today. We do have a Gertie pick. So everybody likes dogs. I should have contacted you earlier about Guinness. I was late. So here now is Gertie's pick for tonight's big matchup. Who you got? Big game tonight in Detroit. Can Ottawa get in the win column? Oh, a Sens victory. Imminent. There you go. Imminent.
Beautiful.
So we'll see how that plays out on Monday. Thanks for watching this week, everybody. I appreciate it. We will see you on Monday. Thanks, Graham. Always.
Thanks, guys. Enjoy the game tonight.
Thanks for tuning in to Coming In Hot. If you enjoyed the show, hit that like button and be sure to subscribe to never miss an episode.